Zephyr Thorne stared at the lottery ticket in her trembling hands, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure her daughter could hear it from the next room. 6 numbers, perfectly aligned with the ones flashing on the TV screen. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, and looked again. They hadn't changed. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the drone of the late-night news. "Oh my God." For a moment, Zephyr forgot how to breathe. $37 million. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of, more than enough to change everything. No more double shifts at the diner. No more choosing between paying the electric bill and buying new shoes for Iris. No more lying awake at night, wondering how she was going to afford college for her brilliant, ambitious daughter. Iris. The thought of her 16-year-old snapped Zephyr out of her daze. She wanted to run into her daughter's room, to wake her up and share the incredible news. But something held her back. A lifetime of disappointments and near misses had taught Zephyr to be cautious, to guard her heart against hope. "I'll wait," she decided, clutching the ticket to her chest. "I'll double-check everything in the morning, make absolutely sure, then I'll tell her." With shaking hands, Zephyr folded the ticket and slipped it into the zippered compartment of her waitress apron. It was where she always kept her tips and any cash she didn't want to lose track of. Safe. Secure. Sleep was impossible that night. Zephyr tossed and turned, her mind racing with possibilities. A house with a yard for Iris to study in. A car that didn't break down every other month, maybe even a vacation, their first ever. As the first rays of dawn crept through her threadbare curtains, Zephyr finally drifted off, a smile on her face for the first time in years. The shrill beeping of her alarm clock jolted her awake just 3 hours later. For a blissful moment, Zephyr couldn't remember why her heart was racing with excitement. Then it all came flooding back. The ticket, the millions, the future suddenly bright with promise. She leapt out of bed, nearly tripping over her own feet in her haste to get to the apron hanging on her bedroom door. Her fingers fumbled with the zipper, desperate to feel the reassuring texture of the paper that would change everything. But as Zephyr reached into the pocket, her blood ran cold. Where the ticket should have been, there was nothing but empty space. "No," she gasped, her voice rising in panic. "No, no, no!" She turned the apron inside out, shook it violently, searched every pocket twice, 3 times, but the ticket was gone. Zephyr sank to her knees, her mind reeling. Had she dreamed it all? But no, she could still see the numbers clear as day in her mind. She had won. She was sure of it. So where was the ticket? "Mom?" Iris's voice, thick with sleep, came from the doorway. "What's wrong? Why are you on the floor?" Zephyr looked up at her daughter, taking in the concerned furrow of her brow, the way she nervously twisted the end of her long, dark braid, a habit she'd had since childhood. How could she tell her? How could she explain that their one chance at a better life had slipped through her fingers? "It's nothing, sweetie," Zephyr forced a smile, pushing herself to her feet. I thought I lost something. But it's fine. Everything's fine." Iris didn't look convinced, but she nodded slowly. "Okay, if you're sure. Do you want me to make breakfast? You look like you didn't sleep well." "That would be wonderful, thank you." Zephyr's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. As Iris padded off to the kitchen, Zephyr sank onto her bed, her mind racing. She had to find that ticket. It had to be somewhere in the apartment. Maybe it had fallen out when she hung up the apron. Maybe... A cold tendril of doubt crept into her thoughts. What if someone had taken it? But who? The only other person with access to the apartment was Iris, and the idea of her daughter stealing from her was unthinkable, wasn't it? Zephyr shook her head, ashamed of even considering it. Iris was a good kid. Straight A's, never in trouble, always willing to help out at home. She wouldn't steal, especially not from her own mother. But as Zephyr mechanically went through the motions of getting ready for her shift at the diner, the seed of doubt had been planted. It grew with every passing minute, feeding on years of financial stress and the gnawing fear that she wasn't providing enough for her daughter. Over a breakfast of slightly burnt toast and instant coffee, Zephyr studied Iris's face, searching for any sign of guilt or deception. But all she saw was the same sweet, slightly worried expression her daughter always wore when she thought her mom was upset. "Are you sure you're okay?" Iris asked, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You seem, I don't know, different." Zephyr forced another smile. "I'm fine, honey. Just tired. Big day at the diner today. We've got that bus tour group coming in." It wasn't entirely a lie. There was a tour group scheduled, and on any other day, Zephyr would have been stressing about the extra work and meager tips. But now, with the phantom weight of the missing ticket haunting her every move, it all seemed trivial. As Zephyr kissed Iris goodbye and headed out the door, she made a decision. She wouldn't say anything about the ticket, not yet. She'd search the apartment top to bottom when she got home. If she didn't find it, well, she'd cross that bridge when she came to it. The diner was chaos, just as she'd expected. The tour group, a busload of retirees from Florida, descended on them like a flock of demanding seagulls, each with special dietary requirements and complaints about the air conditioning. On any other day, Zephyr would have gritted her teeth and powered through, counting every minute until her shift ended. But today she moved through the mayhem in a daze, her mind a constant whirl of, where is it? Who took it? What do I do now? Earth to Zephyr. The voice of her coworker, Juniper, cut through her thoughts. "Table 12's been trying to get your attention for like 5 minutes. You okay, girl?" Zephyr blinked, realizing she'd been standing in the middle of the diner, coffee pot in hand, staring into space. "Sorry, Junie. I've got a lot on my mind." Juniper's eyes softened with concern. "Is it Iris? Is she okay?" No, Iris is fine," Zephyr assured her, touched by her friend's worry. For a moment, she was tempted to confide in Juniper, to share the burden of her lost fortune. But something held her back. Until she knew for sure what had happened to the ticket, she couldn't risk anyone finding out. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of coffee refills and forced smiles. By the time Zephyr hung up her apron and clocked out, she was exhausted, her nerves frayed to breaking point. As she walked home, her steps quickened with each block. She'd searched the apartment, every nook and cranny. The ticket had to be there. It had to be. But 3 hours later, as Zephyr sat amid a sea of overturned cushions and emptied drawers, she had to face the truth. The ticket was gone. And with it, all her dreams of a better life. The sound of a key in the lock made Zephyr's head snap up. Iris. In her frantic search, she'd lost track of time. How was she going to explain this mess? "Mom?" Iris's voice was tentative as she took in the chaos of the living room. What happened? Were we robbed?" Zephyr looked at her daughter, really looked at her. The worry in her eyes, the way she clutched her backpack strap like a lifeline. In that moment, all her suspicions felt shameful, ridiculous. This was her daughter, her beautiful, kind-hearted girl. How could she have ever doubted her? "No, sweetheart," Zephyr sighed, patting the space next to her on the couch. "We weren't robbed. I lost something important. I've been looking for it." Iris sat down, her brow furrowed. "What did you lose? Maybe I can help you look." Zephyr took a deep breath. She hadn't wanted to burden Iris with this, but she realized now that keeping secrets was only making things worse. "It was a lottery ticket," she said finally. "A winning lottery ticket. A big one." Iris's eyes widened. "What? Mom, are you serious? How much?" "37 million, Zephyr said, the words feeling strange in her mouth. "I checked the numbers last night, triple-checked them. But this morning the ticket was gone." "Oh my God," Iris breathed. "Mom, that's incredible and terrible. Where did you last see it?" As Zephyr recounted the events of the previous night, she watched Iris's face carefully. But there was nothing there but shock, sympathy, and a growing determination. "We'll find it," Iris declared, standing up. It has to be here somewhere. Did you check under the fridge? Things are always sliding under there. For the next few hours, mother and daughter searched every inch of the tiny apartment. They moved furniture, emptied every pocket of every piece of clothing, even checked inside the heater vents. But the ticket remained stubbornly missing. As night fell, they sat side by side on the couch, exhausted and defeated. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Iris said softly. "I know how much that money would have meant to us." Zephyr put an arm around her daughter, pulling her close. "It's not your fault, sweetie. These things happen. We'll be okay. We always are, right?" But as she lay in bed that night, sleep once again eluding her, Zephyr couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something. Some crucial piece of the puzzle that would explain everything. The next few days passed in a haze of normalcy that felt anything but normal to Zephyr. She went to work, came home, helped Iris with her homework. But underneath it all was a constant, gnawing ache of what might have been. It was on the 4th day after the ticket's disappearance that things began to change. Zephyr was wiping down tables after the lunch rush when Juniper sidled up to her, an odd expression on her face. "Hey, Zeph," she said, her voice low. "You hear about Milo?" Milo was their boss, the owner of the diner, a gruff, no-nonsense man who rarely interacted with his employees beyond barking orders and complaints. "No," Zephyr frowned. "What about him?" Juniper leaned in closer. "Word is he just bought a brand new car, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, and get this, he paid cash." Zephyr felt her heart skip a beat. "So? Maybe he got an inheritance or something." Juniper shook her head. "That's not all. I overheard him on the phone earlier. He was talking about taking some big vacation. Sounded like he was planning to be gone for months. Since when does Milo take vacations? The man hasn't had a day off in the 10 years I've worked here." As Juniper continued to speculate, Zephyr's mind was racing. Milo had been in the diner the night she checked the ticket. He'd been closing up, counting the till. Could he have seen her reaction? Could he have somehow gotten into her apron pocket? But even as the suspicion formed, Zephyr pushed it away. She was letting her desperation cloud her judgment, seeing conspiracies where there were none. Milo was many things. But a thief? It seemed unlikely. Still, as she finished her shift and headed home, the idea wouldn't leave her alone. What if? What if Milo had taken the ticket? What if he was out there right now, enjoying her family's future? The thought made her stomach churn. But what could she do? She had no proof. Nothing but wild speculation and coincidence. Going to the police would be useless. They'd laugh her out of the station. As Zephyr opened the door to her apartment, she was surprised to find Iris already home, hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table. "Hey, sweetie," she called out. "You're home early." Iris looked up, and Zephyr was struck by the intensity in her daughter's eyes. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I found something. About the ticket." Zephyr's heart leapt into her throat. "What? What did you find?" Iris turned the laptop around, revealing a news article. "Look," she said, pointing to the screen. "They announced the winner of the lottery. It says the winning ticket was purchased at Gus's Gas & Go on 4th Street. That's where you bought it, right?" Zephyr nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. "Yes, that's right. But honey, lots of people buy tickets there. It doesn't mean—" "Keep reading," Iris interrupted. "It says the winner has chosen to remain anonymous, but that they claimed the prize yesterday. Mom, someone has your ticket. Someone claimed your money." The room seemed to spin around Zephyr. She gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady herself. "This can't be happening," she muttered. "It's not possible." But even as she said it, she knew it was true. Someone had stolen her ticket, her future, her daughter's future, and there was nothing she could do about it. The next few weeks were a blur of anger, despair, and fruitless attempts at investigation. Zephyr and Iris pored over security footage from the gas station, questioned neighbors, even considered hiring a private investigator. But with each dead end, each false lead, hope slipped further away. It was Iris who finally said what they were both thinking. "Mom," she said one night as they sat picking at a dinner neither of them had the appetite for. I think we need to let this go." Zephyr looked at her daughter, saw the weariness in her young face, and felt a wave of guilt wash over her. In her obsession with the lost ticket, she'd been neglecting the most important thing in her life. "Oh, sweetie," she sighed. "I'm so sorry. You're right. We can't keep living like this." As they hugged, both of them crying, Zephyr made a silent vow. She would move on, for Iris's sake, if not her own. They would find a way to be happy, to build a future, with or without those millions. Life slowly began to return to normal. Zephyr threw herself into her work with renewed vigor, picking up extra shifts whenever she could. Iris focused on her studies, her determination to get a scholarship to a good college stronger than ever. It was about 2 months after the ticket incident when everything changed again. Zephyr was closing up the diner, the last customer long gone, when she heard a noise from Milo's office. Curious, she approached the partially open door. Inside, she could see Milo hunched over his desk, muttering to himself. "Stupid, stupid," he was saying. "How could you be so careless?" Zephyr was about to announce her presence when something on Milo's desk caught her eye. It was a lottery ticket, crumpled and torn. And next to it? Was that her apron? Her heart pounding, Zephyr pushed the door open. Milo's head snapped up, his eyes wide with panic. "Zephyr, I didn't know you were still here." "What's going on, Milo?" Zephyr asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Why do you have my apron?" Milo's face crumpled. To Zephyr's shock, he burst into tears. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Over the next hour, as they sat in the empty diner, Milo poured out the whole sordid tale. He'd seen Zephyr's reaction to the lottery numbers that night and, in a moment of desperation, had taken the ticket from her apron while she was distracted. "I was drowning in debt," Milo explained, his voice hoarse. "The diner was failing. I had loans I couldn't pay back. I thought this was my only way out." Zephyr listened in stunned silence, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. Anger, betrayal, relief at finally knowing the truth, and an unexpected pang of sympathy for the broken man before her. "But I couldn't do it," Milo continued. "Every time I tried to cash in the ticket, I'd see your face, think about you and Iris. I knew how much that money would mean to you, so I just kept putting it off." He gestured to the crumpled ticket on his desk. "And now it's too late. The claim period expired yesterday. The money's gone. I've ruined everything for nothing." Zephyr felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. The money was gone. Truly, irrevocably gone. All those dreams, all those possibilities, vanished like smoke. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the refrigerator and Milo's ragged breathing. Finally, Zephyr broke the silence. "Why are you telling me this now, Milo? Why not just keep pretending?" Milo looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "Because I can't live with the guilt anymore, because you deserve to know the truth, and because..." He took a deep breath. "Because I'm turning myself in, to the police, tonight." Zephyr's mind reeled. This was it. The moment of justice she'd been dreaming of for months. With Milo's confession, she could press charges. She could see him punished for what he'd done to her family. But as she looked at her boss, this man she'd known for years, who'd given her a job when no one else would, who'd been flexible with her schedule so she could be there for Iris, she felt her anger begin to fade, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "What will happen to the diner?" she found herself asking. Milo shrugged, a gesture of utter defeat. "It'll probably be seized to pay off my debts. Most of the staff will lose their jobs. I've ruined everything for everyone." The implications hit Zephyr like a physical blow. It wasn't just her future at stake anymore. It was Juniper's and all her other co-workers. It was the regular customers who relied on the diner for their daily meals. It was the whole community that would feel the ripple effects of this disaster. In that moment, Zephyr made a decision that would change the course of her life once again. "Don't," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Milo looked up, confusion etched on his face. "Don't what?" "Don't turn yourself in," Zephyr clarified, hardly able to believe the words coming out of her mouth. "The money's gone. Nothing can change that now, but going to jail, it won't help anyone. It'll just hurt more people." But what I did to you? To Iris? How can you just let that go?" Milo asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Zephyr took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I'm not letting it go. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive you completely. But sometimes doing the right thing means making the hard choice. The choice that helps the most people, even if it's not what you want." She stood up, smoothing down her uniform with shaking hands. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get help, real help, for your gambling, your finances, whatever demons drove you to do this. You're going to turn this diner around, make it profitable again, and you're going to spend every day for the rest of your life trying to make up for what you did." Milo nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will. I swear I will. But Zephyr, how can I ever make this right?" Zephyr thought for a moment. "Start by giving your employees better wages, health insurance, college funds for their kids. Do for them what that money would have done for me and Iris." As she walked home that night, Zephyr felt as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The loss of the money still hurt, a dull ache in her chest that she suspected would never fully go away. But for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe again. Iris was waiting up for her, worry etched on her young face. "Mom, where have you been? I was getting worried." Zephyr sat down next to her daughter, pulling her into a tight hug. "I'm sorry, sweetie, I got held up at work, but I think things are going to be okay now." Over a late-night snack of peanut butter sandwiches, Zephyr told Iris everything. About Milo, the ticket, and her decision. She watched her daughter's face carefully, ready for anger or disappointment. But Iris just listened quietly, her brow furrowed in thought. When Zephyr finished, Iris was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up, her eyes shining with a mix of tears and pride. "You did the right thing, Mom. It's not fair, and it's not what I would have done. But it's right." Zephyr felt tears prick her own eyes. "When did you get so wise, huh?" Iris grinned, a flash of her old spark returning. "I learned from the best." The next few months were far from easy. There were days when Zephyr second-guessed her decision, days when the sight of Milo made her blood boil. But slowly, things began to change. True to his word, Milo threw himself into turning the diner around. He brought in a financial advisor, started therapy for his gambling addiction, and implemented all of Zephyr's suggestions for improving employee benefits. To everyone's surprise, the changes began to pay off. With happier employees came better service, and soon the diner was busier than ever. Zephyr found herself promoted to manager, her salary nearly doubled. One crisp autumn evening, about a year after the night that had changed everything, Zephyr and Iris sat on the steps of their apartment building, watching the sunset. They'd just returned from a college tour, Iris's top-choice school, now a real possibility thanks to Zephyr's increased income, and a scholarship program Milo had set up for employees' children. "You know," Iris said, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder, "I've been thinking a lot about that lottery ticket." Zephyr tensed slightly. They rarely talked about it anymore. "Oh? What about it?" Iris was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I think maybe losing it was the best thing that could have happened to us." Zephyr turned to look at her daughter, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Well," Iris continued, "if we'd won all that money, everything would have been easy. We'd have just bought our way out of our problems. But this way, we've had to work for everything. We've grown stronger, and we've helped make things better for other people too. not just ourselves. Zephyr felt a lump form in her throat. "When did you get so wise?" she asked again, echoing her words from that night a year ago. Iris grinned. "Like I said, I learned from the best." As they sat there, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Zephyr reflected on the journey of the past year. The pain, the anger, the despair, it had all been real, and it had all been necessary. But so had the growth, the forgiveness, and the unexpected joy of building something meaningful out of the ashes of her lost fortune. She thought about the diner, now thriving under her and Milo's joint management, about Juniper, who was using her new health insurance to finally get the medical treatment she'd been putting off for years, about all the small ways their little community had been strengthened and uplifted. And she thought about Iris, her brilliant, compassionate daughter who was on the cusp of a bright future, one she had earned through her own hard work and determination. In that moment, Zephyr realized something profound. The lottery ticket, with its promise of instant wealth, had been a mirage. The real treasure had been there all along, in the strength of her relationships, in the resilience she'd built over years of struggle, and in the power she had to make a difference in the lives of others. As the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Zephyr put her arm around Iris and hugged her close. "You're right," she said softly. "Losing that ticket was the best thing that could have happened to us, because it helped us find something much more valuable." Iris looked up, curiosity in her eyes. "What's that?" Zephyr smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. The knowledge that we don't need millions of dollars to be rich. We already are. And as they sat there, mother and daughter, watching night fall over their small corner of the world, Zephyr knew that no amount of lottery winnings could ever compare to the wealth of love, wisdom, and purpose she'd found in the aftermath of loss. It wasn't the happy ending she'd once dreamed of. It was something far more real and far more precious. The missing lottery ticket had taken away a fortune, but it had given Zephyr and Iris something far more valuable, the chance to discover their own strength, to forge deeper connections with their community, and to find meaning in the journey rather than the destination.